Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We are going to get started in just about 3 minutes. So sit back, relax. We've got quite a few people signed up and attending today. So we're going to get everyone a chance to get in here, and then we'll get started right at the top of the hour. Thank you and welcome. For those of you that are just joining us, we're going to get started in about 2 minutes. Thank you and welcome to today's webinar. We are going to get started here in just about a minute, maybe two. We've still got quite a few people that are just coming on to the webinar. So sit back, relax for a few minutes, and we're going to get started. Thank you, and we will get started soon. Hi, everyone. We're going to get started here in just another minute. I see quite a few people still logging on to the webinar. So give us a minute and we'll get started. I want to make sure everyone has a chance to log in. Thank you, and we'll get started soon. Hi, folks. Last check, we are going to take about one more minute. We've got quite a few people signed up, and I see the numbers are still increasing. So we're going to wait one more minute, allow everyone to get signed up and in, and then we will get started here. Thank you for joining our webinar today. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. We are 2 minutes after the hour, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Brett Fritz, and today's webinar host is the James Saliba Executive Coaching Company. And we are really excited to be doing this virtual book launch that Jim has written. And so thank you for joining us. Just a couple housekeeping items for today's webinar. All attendees are in listen-only mode. This webinar is being recorded for later viewing. And so please submit any of your questions into the chat box in Zoom here. There's a Q&A section. You can submit questions on that. Please note too that we will be monitoring that Q&A section. If we don't respond in the Q&A, that's okay. There may be a lot of questions. There may not be any questions coming in. Time permitting, we are going to try and do some Q&A at the end of this session. We're hoping to keep it to about 45 minutes to keep everyone's calendar open on this beautiful Thursday. But yeah, so please submit your questions. If we don't get to your question, if we don't get to answer it, I know that Jim will be responding to every question that comes in after the webinar is finished here. So with that said, let's talk about today's agenda. So many of you probably know Jim, whether it's personally or professionally, but I'm going to do a quick intro of who Jim is. And then we're going to get right into his book launch. And we're going to spend the majority of today's session talking about his book and some of the components within the book. And then we'll finish up with ways to work with Jim, how to contact Jim. And like I said, time permitting, we will get into some Q&A at the end of all that. So with that said, I want to go ahead and introduce Mr. Jim Saliba. It is my honor to do so. Jim is the president of the James Saliba Executive Coaching Company. A few accolades about Jim. So he is a professional certified coach with the International Coach Federation. He's also certified through the ACTP. And pretty cool, he was recently named a top 100 leadership expert on Twitter. So with that said, Jim, can you introduce yourself and say hello to the group?
Sure. Hello. This is Jim, of course. It's good to be here. This has been an exciting project for me. The support that a lot of you have given to me is just overwhelming. I see a lot of people on the line who I worked with through the years. Thank you very much for being here. It's just an exciting project for me.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. It's been great getting to know you over the last couple months. Really we're here today to, for first and foremost, introduce your new book. So Reviving the Work Environment, Taking Your Position as a Leader. I love the title. I love the cover. This is actually a picture of the book itself. I've read through it, super insightful, great workbook. Give me some details. Why did this book come about? Why did you decide to write it? And any more details you can give there?
Well, I guess I tried a few times to write a book. I finally finished one. But what I've seen in organizations, so many leaders get stuck for many, many reasons. So this is kind of a workbook. It is a workbook for leaders to kind of step back, take a look at what's going on in their environment, creating a new powerful vision to move forward with, and put together a lightweight strategy to actually move themselves and to take action and actually have things really happen. We do a lot of this type of work with many executives through my coaching. I just wanted to put it in a book and give it to people who maybe could not afford or have coaching available to them.
I love it. And like I said, I read through it. Great workbook, as you described, great exercises to go through. One thing I noticed too, and this is what we're going to get into for the meat and potatoes today, is you organize the book into sections. Call them, pillars is what you call them in the book. So we're going to break down each pillar here that you've written. So pillar 1 is called Getting to Know Yourself. And I love the title. I love the section. And I also, there's some key quotes that I pulled out from each section. So this one really resonated for me. Authentic leadership is the key to understanding and leading in all organizations today. Tell me, what does that mean? What does it mean to be an authentic leader? And give me more about this section of getting to know yourself.
When I was writing the book, and what I've seen a lot of times out in big organizations, is that we are still working with an early 1900 style of leadership. And at that time in the early 1900s, people were very undereducated, very manual type work, very factory command and control type of stuff. So here we are 100 years later, and we tend to do the exact same thing. Very hierarchical organizations, command and control type style of leadership. We measure individual performance instead of team performance. And the other thing is leaders feel they have to put on armor when they go into meetings. They feel like they need a different facade that they have to show at work versus at home. Where today we have really educated workers, knowledge-based workers, and they're all looking for authentic people to lead them. They don't need to know that leaders know everything. So being authentic and genuine and being a little bit vulnerable is what leadership needs today. And that's what this is about.
And I know you got deep into the different personality types. So talk to me about how that affects, the leadership styles and then how people need to be reacting to that.
When I started this journey and looking into it and trying to understand what authentic leadership is, I've noticed that in the past few years, there's been a lot of conversation around emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence around corporate culture. Also, authentic leaders all start with self-awareness. So I wanted to start with something simple for people to understand who they are and what they are. Now, there are tons of different personality type of assessments out there. I've used them in different organizations, but many organizations use it as a way for teams to understand who the other person is, how to talk to the other person, how to collaborate with that. But they don't put enough emphasis on who you are, understanding yourself, how you react to things, and how people react to you. Myers-Briggs is one that I put in the book. There's a lot of free online ones to use there. And it's been around for a long time. There's lots and lots of data around it. So it's about how you interface to the world. So as leaders, I put in 3 different categories of leaders that they're out there. On the left-hand side, you have autocratic leaders who do not need any help or do not want any help in or input from their team to make decisions. They make decisions on their own and push that forward. Is not a bad thing. This does not mean they're yelling at their employees. They're not belittling them. It is just their decision method. Way on the other side is laissez-faire. Laissez-faire is about picking the right people, educating them, putting a smart team together, and allowing them to make decisions. That doesn't mean you are not ultimately responsible. You're still responsible for the team, but now you get to spend much more of your time clearing the runway for your team, making sure that they know what's happening, keeping a heads up, but allowing them to do their work and actually doing decision. In the middle are all kinds of other ones that you heard of out there called servant leadership, democratic leadership. It's a place on the scale within that participatory type of leadership where you talk to your team, you do decisions together, and you bring them all together to make the decision. And there are lots of different levels there.
So I love the fact that you break it down that way, but it ultimately comes back to providing a vision. And I think a lot of businesses and leaders talk about vision statements, and company talks about vision statements. But give me another nugget here. Like, how do you create that strong leadership vision?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the concept of corporate vision statements. That's not what this is. And this is sad because I see so many leaders that feel the corporate vision is the only vision that has to happen, and we just fall in line with it. You need a vision for yourself. You need a vision for where you want your team to be. You need a vision for where you want your department to be. It's your vision of how you want to see things work. Now, maybe it should be in line with the corporate vision, I agree. But every leader needs to have their own vision. Without it, how can you lead? You're just following. You're following, you're not leading. So I believe without it, you're not a leader. And I have lots of quotes that I've used in the past to help emphasize that. But the thing I want you to get is that the corporate umbrella of a vision statement is not that magical that everyone automatically falls in. You need to have your own vision. Now, your vision may take you past your current job, your current position. It may be with a different organization. You still need to have your own vision.
Yeah, I love that, Jim. And I'll say too, we're given a very high level of the book here, but as I went through the book myself, tons of great workbook type examples like you described to help understand and for this first pillar, get to know yourself. And it was eye-opening, right? Because I thought I knew myself, right? But there were traits and there were characteristics that came out as I went through the workbook that was good for me to do some self-evaluation there. So I think it's great, and it's a great way to open up the book here in that first pillar. As we move forward, the next pillar you've got in the book, or the next section, is performance. And performance, I think, is a pretty straightforward definition of what it means to measure performance. But this quote really stood out to me. And you said that when there is no means for measuring performance, the employees will not be encouraged to put in their premier effort. I know for me, in my career, I've had times where my manager, my company, my team was not properly measuring performance. And as a result, I found that I was not motivated. I was not putting my best effort. And as a result, my team was not putting the best effort. So talk to me about performance, the second pillar you've got here in the book. Pretty broad topic, but talk to me about it a little bit.
Yeah, this was an interesting piece for me. A short story earlier in my career, and I see some people are on the line that might remember this. I started running a quality assurance team for a large software company, and it was not moving well at the time. And this was one of my first management roles. All of a sudden, I had a few teams of engineers, and I finally said, okay, what if I make ourselves or think of ourselves not part of this big organization, but we're our own company. We have our own services. We are providing them. How do we make that happen? And as a team, we put a whole vision around that as ourselves. We gave ourselves an identity. And with that, we were able to put performance around it. How did we want to decide how we measure our services and how we provide them? And we went very much from a I can't get this done attitude to, wow, we can get this done. I find it very sad that when I talk to leaders out there, they have such a I can't do it attitude, but their biggest failure is learning how to move from having a vision into planning and execution. So that's what this section of the book is about. It's about putting together a lightweight strategy to move you towards that vision.
Yeah, and I wanted to highlight this because we've all heard about SMART goals, or maybe not all, but many people have heard about SMART goals. But I really like how you break down SMART goals. So can you walk us through the methodology here? Starting with just specific, the S. Walk us through all the different components of a SMART goal plan.
Sure. Short comment is I've seen so many people use SMART goals over the years. Typically, it was used for once a year performance employee reviews. And quite honestly, I have never seen poor use of SMART goals in my life before. People didn't know how to use them. They didn't check into them later. But we can use them to help guide us through our goals and move us into execution. So the first one is actually to be very specific. You want to be precise of what it is that you want to do. Not very objective. You want to be not objective, you want to be very subjective of what this is. Be precise. What you don't want to do is be vague or ambiguous and leave it too open. The next one is measurable. Be objective. Use numbers. When we say something like, I just want to increase this, or I just want more of that, that is not really measurable. Is it 1 point higher? Is it a 1/10 of a point higher? How much is more? So use numbers. Be real specific and objective here. Articulate, spell it out. What is it that we're doing? How are we going to do it? This is a little bit of planning put into what you're specifically looking to do. Don't skip this step. This is what people do all the time. They tend to put something for the S, they try to put something for the M, and they stop there. That will be a failure. R is be reliable, be real and attainable. We want to make sure that whatever you're trying to do, it can be a stretch goal, but don't get unrealistic. Don't get unrealistic. Time sensitive. We want to put a timeline to this. We want to include what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and when is it going to be done. Don't keep moving the timeline. You may want to figure out why the timeline needs to keep moving. Were you not specific enough? Was this not attainable enough? What was the problem if you have to keep moving it? But it's basically a lightweight strategy to move you from where you are to where you want to go. Setting it up in priorities. Now that you have your goals, the next big thing is to look at it and say, what do I want to do with this? What is the order? And remember the 80-20 rule. I really believe in this. 20% of the work is most often 80% of your benefits. So put the things that give you the most benefit up front, the most change up front. And also realize in your heart that things change. Markets move, situations arise. Look at our current COVID-19. How many things have changed because of that? I look at something like this. We're using Zoom. Their capacity has zoomed up so fast. I've seen so many companies crumble under this type of load all of a sudden. But they have the leadership that put people together and make sure that they're putting out new releases and making sure that things are going. So realize that things move, and priorities from yesterday are not going to be the priorities of tomorrow. So be prepared to reprioritize and maybe change some of your goals.
I love it, Jim. So I got to this point in the book, read the first section, get to know yourself, read the second section, performance. And now my thought was, okay, how do I go, right? What's the next step? And it was perfect as I read through it. You know, your chronological order of the book was great because pillar 3 is taking action. Um, and just to summarize, you know, the quote that stood out to me again was from you here. You said professional development is essential for an individual who desires to always be better. I'm a former athlete, so I know from a performance and desiring to be better as an individual, you know, I always had to work my tail off to get there. But you know, professional development for an individual who wants to be a better leader, a better provider in their company. You know, I love this quote, and I've actually got it now printed out in my office. So tell me about this third pillar, taking action. You know, how do we go from here?
Well, there are so many examples that I can give of companies and leaders that create plans, create strategies, and then go back to work, and it just goes up on the shelf and nothing ever changes. Um, and that's sad because this is what our companies need. Our world moves so fast today. So taking action is a huge piece of changing your culture and moving yourself forward. So taking action starts to take a look at where you are now. You created a vision, you put your goals, you have your priorities. Let's take a look at what you need to make this happen. What is it that you need to move you forward? Uh, are you looking at people within the organization or outside the organization, how they help you or hinder you? Do you look at your skill set? Do you have to widen your knowledge base? Do you need support? And remember, you're never going through this alone. So part of this is building a whole network to help you move forward and provide the support that you need to actually take action.
Yeah, I put this go button up here because I think all of us would say it'd be a lot easier if we could just hit the button that makes us go.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
but you break down in the book 3 different types of professional development. So I want to walk through those 3 types. First one being education. So talk to me about, you know, from an educational development, different
Yep.
types.
So early in my career, I read this book from Brian Tracy. He has many business books out there. And he talked about the 3% investment rule. And I have used it over the years. And it's a very simple rule. Whatever you make, whatever your salary is, or whatever you make from doing an event, take 3% and invest in yourself. That could be formal training, conferences, books, reading, the list goes on and on. But take that 3% and invest in yourself. So one of the ways that I talk about very simply is formal education. You know, in today's world, adult learners make up almost half of every university. I went back to school myself many years ago and did my MBA and was surprised at how many adult learners that were out there. I kind of was nervous about being in a classroom with a bunch of young kids, and is it going to work for me? But you know what? Universities are catering to adults right now, especially in areas of business and leadership.
So perfect with education. Then talk to me about different training groups or training development that you can get through.
Oh yeah, well, there are plenty of places out there that do training on specific topics. Many companies, if you have enough people within your organization, they can even do it on premises. Um, I remember back when I was at a large software company, they used to have Dale Carnegie on the premises. That made a very big difference in my life and actually helped me do learning and motivating in action and see myself more clearly. So training, any specific need that you point out within your professional development, go out there, use that 3%, find it for yourself.
Yeah, that's great. And then one that really, drives home for you with what your business does is more on the executive coaching side. So for those people that are not familiar with executive coaching, how it works, give some nuggets of information here about what it's all about.
Sure. So as I started out on my own in my own company, helping organizations, I originally started working with engineers. And I quickly found out that the real problem wasn't so much at the engineering level, is it was the disconnect I was earlier talking about at the leadership level, especially in middle management. So I came up and I started doing my own training to build myself as an executive coach to help that level. Uh, it is more actionable than and less academic. It is the only one-to-one self-development that happens. It's a more of a Socratic method instead of the coach telling you what to do. It's to help you go through the problems, be a sounding board. And for many leaders, and this happened, I have an example that happened earlier this week. I was talking to an executive and he just started venting of all the problems they have and then apologized. Mm. And I said to him, don't apologize. Could you have done this with someone at work? And they said, no. Could you have done this with someone at the family? And they said, yes, but they wouldn't understand. Being yourself, being vulnerable with someone is part of what an executive coach does. It's just one little piece, but it really helps you think through and move through. This is where people get stuck. Coaches really help you get unstuck. It's a great thing. I find that middle management has a very hard time going or having the idea of a coach. They feel that I got here because I know what I'm doing. If I have a coach, I'm telling the world that I don't know what I'm doing. That's far from the truth. What happens is as people move up, CEOs have coaches. Almost every CEO I know has a coach. Why don't you?
I think it's great. And I've done quite a bit of work with coaches. I echo your sentiments, about the process in general. So just to summarize the three: educational, training and development, training specific development, and then executive coaching. And that three trifecta, if you will, really becomes, like the rocket ship to help your leadership skills take off, your career continue to propel forward, or just your own individual desires to create a better character in yourself, which I love. And when I first started working with you and getting to know you, Jim, we were talking about the book, and I asked you, if you recall, I said, why'd you write the book? And you gave me this quote that I'll finish with, and then we'll transition a little bit. But you kind of said it a few times today. Is you said leaders get stuck, right? Whether you are CEO, middle management, early in your career manager, just starting to learn how to be a leader in your organization, whether you lead a team or not. But you said this book is going to provide you the process to get unstuck. And so I absolutely love that. I thought the flow of the book was really solid. So kudos to you and your group to get it out. Excited to see a lot of the feedback that starts to come in on the book. So thank you for sharing the wealth of your knowledge, with the world through this book. I know it's a big undertaking for you. So thank you for that. As we transition here, again, we wanted to be very specific and respectful of everyone's time. I do want to finish up with just, ways people can work with you. So you've got a lot of people here that maybe know you, like you said, from a past career life, or they follow you on social media because you've got quite a large social media following. So let's talk about some ways that people can work with you as an executive coach in the industry, and And so you broke it down into really two ways, whether it be a do-it-yourself or more of a professional engagement approach. So can you give the audience here details on the differences between?
Sure. As a do-it-yourself way, of course, we now have the book that's available for about $20. It's going to be $19.99. Actually, because of the COVID-19, things have been a little bit slower than I expected. So the book won't be on Amazon for sale until July 7th. However, you can go to my website, jamessaliba.com, and put yourself on the pre-order list, and I will make sure you'll get the book as soon as it's available. But I wanted to give people away some value out of $19.99 and have a process to move themselves forward. Some people can do that. It becomes difficult sometimes to put it into action. The other thing is we're launching a YouTube channel called Gym Talk Moments. This is Moments in Leadership. I already put together a number of short videos. They're about 5 or 6 minutes long. I get topics from leaders who ask me questions, and I go into them, put some steps together, some frameworks together that leaders can use. This will start June 2nd will be the first one that will go up. Please watch YouTube, or when you're on the webinar list, I'll let you know when it's going to be there. And this has been an exciting project as well. A few years ago, I thought of doing a podcast. I never got it off the ground, and it morphed into what we now call Gym Talk Moments. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and I know I've seen a few of the videos that you've shared, both pre-production and post-production. Great content. And you also said that a lot of the motivation and topics for your videos that you do, the short videos, come from your coaching sessions, obviously fully confidential in that way, but you know, the topics themselves, someone will be inquisitive asking something and you end up turning it into a video so you can share it with the world. So I think that's phenomenal. I think that's great, and people are going to get a lot of value out of that from the DIY approach. The other approach, though, would be if they want to engage with you on a professional level as a coach. So talk through what that looks like.
So we have the book. One of the things I decided to do was have an easy way for someone who doesn't know what coaching is about to experience it. So for $250, an easy step, you'll get a copy of the book and 2 hours of coaching time. And we can use those 2 hours of coaching time any way you want. It could be that you go through the exercises yourself and then we talk about them, or any mixture of we'll talk first, you'll do some exercises, we'll talk some more. We'll break it up any way that you want. And you don't have to wait till July 7th for the print book to be available. If you wanted to get started on that right away, I can send you a PDF version of the book and we can get started immediately. If you wanted to do this, it's easy to do. You can go to my website, jamessaliba.com, and there is a place that says apply for coaching. It asks you a few questions, your name, your phone number, and then there's a bunch of other questions that help you think about what it is that you want to get out of the conversation. The more you fill that out, the better conversations we'll have. So that's an easy way to do that. And of course, if you want to go further with that, we have other opportunities to do hourly coaching, or I do 3 or 6 months engagements at a fixed price.
Yeah, fantastic. And you mentioned it quickly. I'll reiterate it again for the audience that's here. Anyone that's interested in learning more about gym in general and or receive a pre-order copy of the book and or look at some coaching sessions, several ways to get in touch with Jim. So his email, jim@jamessaliba.com, or the web address or website is just jamessaliba.com, and there's a contact form on there. I did want to highlight too that Jim, you've got a great social following between Twitter and LinkedIn. And you're putting out great content, little nuggets of quotes, inspirational comments, thoughts. So I'd really encourage people to take a look at your social following as well. So I would just like to say thank you, Jim. This has been an honor hearing you go through the session. You've done quite a bit of coaching with me now over the last couple of months, as we're preparing for this webinar. So it's been great, and I've been taking little notes. And reading the book was phenomenal. Now we do have a few minutes left here. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We had a couple questions come in, so I do want to just, since we've got a few minutes here, just answer a couple of the questions. If you have more questions, please send them in. And if we don't get to your question today, then like I said, Jim will be following up to answer everyone individually as well. And as a reminder, this is being recorded. So there will be a recorded version of this if you want to go back. We had one person said, hey, can you post that quote again? So little things, if you missed a nugget of information or you weren't able to take a note fast enough, there will be a recording that will come out and you'll have access to that as well. But let's jump into a couple questions here, Jim. So first one, you quickly mentioned this at the end, but so the question was, Jim, do you do executive coaching with individuals, with companies, with both? So can you talk through your process for what you do with executive coaching?
I guess the quick answer would be both. I do one-on-ones with individual leaders, and often I'll take a contract with a company, and that can play out different ways. Either I'll work individually with their leaders or as a team. But we're also trying to experiment with some new ways. We're finding or experimenting with working with individuals in a group, setting up cohorts. There are a number of people who said, well, the price of executive coaching one-on-one is expensive. I can't do that. So we're putting cohorts together of leaders. We do it over Zoom, and they're finding that power in understanding other people are going through the same problems, and networking power that comes out of that even after the coaching. But they're all the same. Everything that we talk about in a coaching environment is confidential, even if I'm doing it under a company. Of course, the company sponsor will get updates of your progress, but the content and what's said in the conversations are 100% confidential.
I think that's great. So thank you. Another question came in. I love this one because you mentioned it earlier with how the world has changed with COVID-19. So the question is, how do you think COVID-19 is changing leadership in the workplace?
Oh, this is really interesting. I believe leaders have to have an idea of planning for crisis, which is basically what we're going through. And in the last 30 years, actually, there has been a term called VUCA, V-U-C-A, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, which is basically what's going on right now. I think we're going to see this term come up much more now that we had COVID-19. Leaders are going to be much more aware of being able to or understand what's needed in leading through a crisis. But I think three things we need to understand when that happens is, one, you're going to get bombarded of information, good and bad. In a crisis, you're going to have to choose your sources of information very wisely to help you make decisions. Two, stay very flexible. See the opportunities that are in a crisis and use them. And that will allow you to move forward. The other thing I would recommend, use the process that we have in the book, but shorten your feedback loops. Often companies build a plan for the year and they just keep pushing that plan no matter what happens in the world around them. And this is sad because this is one reason why organizations go out of business. But if you shorten your feedback loops and learn from it and adapt from it, you can get through any crisis.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. That's great. I'm going to do one more question because we do have a little bit of time here. And I like this one as well. So the final question we'll do, and again, thank you for your time and thank you for everyone joining us today. So the question is, what do you do when your company has an executive, call it a CEO, a president, a senior manager, that demonstrates poor leadership abilities? So the executive demonstrates poor leadership abilities. The question then is twofold. How do I be a strong leader in those situations?
That question also came up last week with someone. That's interesting. Yes. So often what I would say here is, remember, leadership has nothing to do with your title or your position. It's not about the roles. People who look just at the roles are forcing themselves into a very narrow definition of what a leader is and basically boxes themselves in. It's about being a leader no matter what your role is in. So in the second pillar of the book, we talk about different goals to put together. So think about these, I would say, 5 things as you start putting together your SMART goals. 1, you must be able to lead yourself before you can lead anybody else. So if you have trouble getting things done, you have trouble being active and move from strategy to execution, these are things that we'll have to work on. You can't influence others unless you can manage your own behaviors and beliefs. The second thing is find ways to work with this existing boss or leader. Great leaders build consensus. It's talking to not only upward or downward, but your peers. Build consensus, use your network. 3 would be to develop your influence wherever you are. Just as I was saying, impact people all around you, peers, employees, leadership. 4, you're going to have to still be strategic, avoid the landmines that could make things work. Be smart, be strategic, keep in view of what's going on, just don't plow forward. And lastly, prove your worth every single day. Never stop growing. Leaders who understand that every day is an opportunity to display value. So if you go through the section of the book where you're building your goals and your professional development, these are the things that I would put in to establish yourself as a leader, no matter what your leadership is doing above you.
I love it, Jim. That's great. And I think that's a great place to stop here. So thank you again, Jim. Thank you to everyone that joined us today. We had a packed house. So thank you. I know you're considering doing more of these webinars, being more topic specific. And so thank you. To everyone, again, this is being recorded, so there will be a follow-up with emails and follow-up how to access that and how to get more information on where to purchase the book and or interact with Jim in the future. But with that said, we'll sign off from here. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.